Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel. I'd love it if you could leave a comment letting me know where you're listening from around the world. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe if you're enjoying this video. Story 1. I've camped most of my life. I'm from Western Pennsylvania. Grew up hiking state parks with my dad. We spent summers in places like Allegheny National Forest, where the woods stretch so far they feel older than memory. My dad taught me how to read trees, how to listen to wind, how to tell the difference between an animal moving and something falling. I know what normal sounds like. This wasn't normal. It happened in late October, the kind of cold that creeps under your jacket and settles into your ribs. I picked a small campground just outside the forest boundary. 5 sites total. Gravel road leading in. One rusted bathroom building that looked like it had been installed sometime in the early 80s and forgotten. The door had a padlock on the outside. I remember thinking that was strange. Why would you need to lock a bathroom from the outside? There were no other cars. I liked it that way. By sunset, the temperature dropped fast. The trees were mostly bare, their branches scratching against each other in the wind. Leaves moved across the ground in dry whispers. I built a small fire, ate from a can, and crawled into my tent by 10. Around 2:30 a.m., I woke up. Not gradually, not from a dream. My eyes just opened. At first, I thought it was silence that woke me. The wind had stopped. The woods had gone still in that unnatural way they sometimes do before a storm. I lay there listening to my own heartbeat. Then I heard it. A cracking sound. Not sharp like a twig. Slow. Heavy. Like wood under pressure. I unzipped the tent just an inch. About 20 yards out stood a tall, thin tree. Dead trunk. No branches left except a few broken stubs. I remembered it clearly because when I set up camp, I checked for widowmakers. My dad's voice still echoes in my head about falling limbs. The tree was leaning, not swaying, leaning toward me. It looked wrong, bent at an angle that didn't match the slope of the ground. The other trees were straight, still. This one tilted like something invisible was pulling it down. I blinked hard, thinking maybe the wind had pushed it and I just hadn't noticed. But there was no wind. The tree dipped lower, slowly, like someone testing how far it could go before snapping. Then I heard breathing. Behind it, deep, wet, close. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was steady, like lungs filling and emptying in the dark. I couldn't see anything behind the trunk, just blackness. But the tree jerked slightly, then straightened back up. Not all the way, just enough to stand almost upright again, like someone had let go. I told myself it was a deer. Rutting season. Bucks rub their antlers against trees. They push. They lean. That made sense until the breathing stopped, and I heard footsteps. Not running, not crashing. Slow, deliberate. Crunch. Pause. Crunch. They were circling my tent. I lay flat on my back, staring at the thin fabric inches from my face. The footsteps moved to my left, then to my right, each step spaced evenly. Controlled. It wasn't wandering. It was pacing. My mouth went dry. I tried to regulate my breathing, but it kept catching in my throat. The steps stopped behind my head, right where the tent wall was closest to my skull. Silence pressed in. Then something touched the back of the tent. 2 fingers. That's the only way I can describe it. Not claws. Not a paw. 2 narrow points pushing gently into the nylon. Testing the tension. Pressing inward just enough to dimple the fabric. I felt it through my sleeping bag. A small, careful pressure. Curious. I didn't scream. I didn't move. I reached slowly for my keys. The fingers slid downward an inch, then stopped. I hit the panic button. My car headlights exploded through the trees. White light sliced across the campsite. The pressure vanished instantly. I unzipped the tent all the way and scrambled out, heart pounding so hard it made my vision pulse. There was nothing there. No animal. No person. No footprints in the leaves around my tent. I swung the flashlight beam toward the dead tree. It was perfectly upright. Still, the ground around it looked untouched. I walked closer despite every instinct telling me not to. The base of the trunk was wrong. It wasn't rooted. It had snapped, clean through at the bottom. The wood splintered and gray. The trunk was just resting there, balanced in the dirt like someone had jammed it back into place. There was no support, no rope, no branches holding it up. It should have been lying flat. Instead, it stood straight. As I stared, the tree shifted, just slightly, not enough to fall, just enough to let me know it wasn't balanced. It was being held. I stepped back. The forest felt tight around me, watching. Then I heard that breathing again. Not behind the tree this time. Behind me. Close enough that I felt warmth against the back of my neck. I didn't turn around. I don't know why. Maybe some part of me understood that if I looked, I'd see something I'd never be able to forget. Instead, I bolted. I dove into the car, locked the doors, and turned the engine over so hard I thought I'd flood it. The headlight stayed on the tree as I reversed. For half a second, just half, I saw something beside it. Tall, thinner than the trunk, too straight to be natural. And as I backed up, the tree leaned forward again, like it was reaching. I didn't stop driving until I hit the main road. At sunrise, curiosity almost dragged me back. Almost. Instead, I called the ranger station later that day to report a broken tree near the site. The ranger paused. Then he said, "Which one?" I told him it was the thin, dead trunk near the third campsite. He went quiet. Finally, he said, "That tree fell 2 years ago." I didn't argue. I never went back. But sometimes, when I wake up in the middle of the night, I hear that slow, cracking sound again. And I can't shake the feeling that whatever was holding that tree upright let go, because it didn't need it anymore. Story 2. This happened in northern Arizona, just outside Flagstaff, where the pine trees grow tall and thin and the air smells like cold dirt, even in spring. 4 of us from college rented a cheap campsite for spring break. Hotels were too expensive. We thought camping would be funny. Cheap. Simple. It wasn't. There was me, Jared, Tyler, and Mitch. We'd known each other since freshman year. Jared was my roommate. Loud during the day, dead quiet at night. Tyler and Mitch shared the second tent about 20 feet from ours. The first night was normal. We built a fire, burned hot dogs, told stupid stories. The woods felt big but not threatening. You could see stars through the trees, wind moving through pine needles. The kind of place that makes you feel small in a good way. The second night felt different. Not in a dramatic way, just heavier. The temperature dropped faster than the forecast said it would. The fire wouldn't stay lit. Smoke kept blowing straight into our faces like the woods didn't want it there. We crawled into our tents around 11. I woke up to Jared shaking my shoulder. "Do you hear that?" His voice wasn't joking. It was tight. At first, I only heard wind brushing against the tent. That soft plastic ripple. I almost told him to go back to sleep. Then I heard it. Faint. So faint I thought it was inside my own head. Jarred. Drawn out. Soft. Like someone standing just far enough away to make you lean closer. We both froze. Tyler and Mitch were in the other tent. We could hear one of them snoring through the quiet. No footsteps. No crunching leaves. Just that whisper again. Jared. It wasn't calling loudly. It wasn't angry. It sounded patient. Like it had all night. Jared swallowed. That's not funny. It's not me. I whispered. The voice came again. A little closer. Not louder. Just closer. Jared, come here. My chest tightened. The zipper of our tent was at Jared's side. Slowly, like we were in some kind of bad horror movie, he reached forward and pulled it down a few inches. Cold air slipped in. We both leaned toward the gap. The campsite was empty. The fire pit was black and dead. The trees stood still. No headlights from the parking area. No movement. No shape hiding behind a trunk. Nothing. Jared zipped it shut. We didn't speak. Then, Jared, we both turned toward the sound. It wasn't outside anymore. It was behind us. Inside the tent. Right against the fabric wall at our backs. Clear. Close enough that I felt breath that wasn't there. Jared, open it. Jared's whole body started shaking. Open what? There was no second zipper. No flap. Nothing behind us but solid tent wall. And then Tyler screamed. Not startled. Not confused. Pain. We flew out of our tent so fast. I don't remember unzipping it. The air hit like ice. We sprinted the 20 feet to their tent. Tyler, I yelled. Inside, Tyler was sitting upright, clutching his chest like he'd just run a mile. Mitch looked half asleep, panicked. What happened? I shouted. Tyler's eyes were wide and wet. Someone unzipped it. What? He leaned in. Right here. Tyler pointed to the opening of their tent. Mitch shook his head. Dude, the zipper never moved. Tyler ignored him. Tall. Too tall. No face. Just dark. Like someone cut a person's shape out of the night and bent it toward me. His voice cracked. It said Jared's name. Every hair on my arm stood up. Jared hadn't spoken since we ran over. He just stared at the zipper. I reached down and checked it myself. Still fully closed. From the inside, no tears, no broken teeth, no sign anyone had touched it. We didn't stay to argue about logic. We packed in total darkness. No fire, no flashlights beyond our phones. Nobody wanted to shine a beam into the trees. The woods felt crowded now, like we were the only ones moving. Jared didn't say a word the whole time. He just kept glancing over his shoulder like something might be standing just outside the edge of sight. When we finally got into the car and locked the doors, I felt something I didn't expect. Relief. Until we started driving. The campsite road was long and narrow, winding through dense forest before it connected to the highway. No cell service out there. We'd lost signal hours earlier. Halfway down that road, Jared's phone lit up in his hand. We all saw it. Voicemail notification. 12:17 a.m. The exact time Tyler screamed. No way. Mitch said, "There's no service." I added. Jared's hands were trembling so badly, he dropped the phone once before unlocking it. He hit play. At first, just static, low and grainy. Then breathing. Slow, measured, and underneath it, jarred. The voice was clearer than before. No wind, no distance. Right into the microphone. Open it. The voicemail ended with a soft zipper sound. Not loud, just enough to know what it was. Jared threw the phone into the back seat like it had burned him. We didn't speak again until we hit the highway and bars came back on our screens. Here's the part one still don't understand. When we checked his call log later, there was no missed call. No number attached to the voicemail. Just a message. We reported it to the campground office the next day. The woman at the desk looked uncomfortable before we even finished explaining. She asked which site number. When we told her, she went quiet. People request that site, she said carefully. Because it's cheap. Why is it cheap? I asked. She hesitated too long. There was an incident a few years ago. A hiker went missing. His friend said he kept hearing someone calling his name at night. Thought it was one of them playing a joke. She slid a brochure across the counter like that was the end of it. They never found him. Jared doesn't camp anymore. He changed his number the next week. But sometimes, usually late at night, he'll text me one sentence. Do you ever hear it? I always lie and say no. Because once, about a month after that trip, I woke up in my apartment in the middle of the night. Phone on my nightstand. No notifications. No sound. But clear as anything. From the dark corner of my bedroom. Jared. Story 3. Last summer, I decided to take a solo trip through the Smoky Mountains in Tennessee. I needed the quiet. Needed to prove to myself that I could handle being alone with my thoughts. I picked up a printed trail map from the visitor center just outside Gatlinburg, the kind folded so many times it felt like thick paper armor. The ranger circled a few recommended backcountry spots and reminded me to check in if I changed routes. 6 miles in, sweat soaking through my shirt and my legs starting to ache, I found something strange. A campsite. It wasn't marked on my map. It looked real, not some random patch of dirt. The ground was flat and cleared. There was a stone fire ring built carefully, stones blackened from old burns. A rough wooden bench, made from a split log, sat a few feet away. Someone had taken time here. Someone had cared. I checked my map again. Nothing. I figured it was unofficial. Maybe maintained by hikers who didn't want the crowds. It felt safe enough. Private. Hidden. I set up my tent. As the sun started to drop behind the trees, the forest changed in a way I didn't like. There were no bugs. I don't mean fewer bugs. I mean none. No mosquitoes whining near my ears. No flies. No beetles clicking against my tent fabric. No birds either. No squirrels scratching through leaves. No wind pushing through branches. It was like someone had hit mute on the entire forest. The silence pressed in, thick and unnatural. Even my own breathing sounded too loud. I told myself I was just tired, that my brain was exaggerating things because I was alone. Solo hiking messes with your head if you let it. I ate a protein bar, drank some water, and crawled into my sleeping bag before full dark. I must have fallen asleep fast, because when I woke up, it felt like I'd only been out for minutes. I checked my watch. 1:40 a.m. I didn't wake from a sound. I woke from pressure. The air inside the tent felt heavy, dense, like humidity before a thunderstorm, except my skin was dry. My ears were ringing, a high steady tone that made my jaw ache. Then I heard it. Footsteps. Slow, deliberate, heavy boots crunching over dirt and gravel. They weren't passing by. They were circling. One slow loop around my tent. Then another. My throat went dry. "Hello," I called out, trying to sound casual, like this was normal. The footsteps stopped instantly. Silence stretched between us. Then a man's voice answered from just outside the nylon wall. "Evening." Calm, polite, almost friendly. My heart pounded so hard I thought he'd hear it. "Can I help you?" I asked. A pause. "You're in my spot." I looked at my watch again. 1:42 a.m. "I didn't see anyone when I got here," I said. Another pause. Longer this time. "You wouldn't." Something brushed against the side of my tent. Not a hand. Not quite. More like fabric sliding over fabric. I grabbed my headlamp and flicked it on. The beam lit up the thin wall in front of me, glowing pale yellow. Silence. No breathing. No footsteps. Just that ringing in my ears. I unzipped the tent slowly, every movement loud in the stillness. The light cut across the campsite. Empty. No one standing there. No shape retreating into the trees. No fresh footprints in the dirt. The bench sat exactly where it had been. The fire ring. My stomach dropped. It was glowing faint red. I hadn't built a fire. I was too tired when I arrived. I hadn't even gathered wood. But the stones were warm. I could feel the heat on my face. Inside the ring sat a coffee mug I hadn't seen before. Old enamel, white with a chipped blue rim. Steam curled up from it in thin, lazy spirals. I stepped back. The forest was still silent. Not just quiet, dead quiet. I whispered, "This isn't funny." No answer. I didn't sleep again. I sat in my tent, back against my pack, knife in one hand and headlamp off, listening. Around 3 a.m., I heard one more thing. A slow exhale, right outside the tent door, like someone leaning down close. Morning finally bled into the trees around 6:30. The silence lifted first. A bird called in the distance. Then another. Wind returned like it had never left. Everything looked normal. Too normal. The fire ring was cold. The mud was gone. No footprints. No sign anyone had been there but me. I packed up fast. No breakfast. No water break. Just shoved everything into my bag and started hiking back. The trail felt longer on the return. My legs were shaky, and I kept feeling like someone was just out of sight behind me. Not chasing, just keeping pace. When I reached the ranger station, the same woman from the day before was behind the desk. "Everything okay?" she asked. I hesitated, then said, "Are there any unmarked campsites about 6 miles and on Laurel Fork?" She frowned. "No, not there. I stayed at one," I said. "Flat ground, fire ring, wooden bench." Her expression changed. "That section burned in a wildfire in 2016, she said quietly. "It was bad. We lost a lot of trees. Nothing's grown back properly yet." I felt my mouth go dry. "There aren't any standing benches," she added. "There aren't even enough trees left for that." I pulled out my phone. "I took pictures," I said. I opened my gallery. Every photo from the campsite was black. Not dark. Black. Like the lens cap had been on. Except one. My tent stood in the center of the frame. The trees behind it looked thin and skeletal, more charred than I remembered. And on the wooden bench, a man sat there. Heavy boots. Elbows resting on his knees. Head tilted slightly forward. Watching my tent. Watching me. The timestamp read 1:41 a.m. Right between when I woke up and when he said, evening.